getting to a startup is exciting, but it's also scary. Like when I did it myself, when I was the actual founder, the owner, the CEO of the company, responsible for everything and all the money and how you build a product and scale goes in, it becomes scary. You're no longer that right-hand person because you always have somebody taking care of it. You are that person.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I am your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's founded and grown several companies to 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as founded Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. And as usual, we have another great guest on today's episode. And I feel like I always slaughter everybody's name, so apparently it must be something with me, but I'm going to try my best. Shafiur Rahman, is that close?
Shafiur, close.
Shafiur. And I thought that, before we jumped on, I'm like, I think it's just a Sharif, and then you told me Shafiur, and then I went back to Sharif anyway. So,
yeah,
Shafiur,
no worries.
Shafiur, not Sharif, is been in startups for a while. Has done that in various startups over the past 15 years. And as you can maybe tell by when he starts talking, his current startup is on Chatterworks, and he'll tell you a little bit more about that. Lives in Orange County, where they have the land of the lockdowns, and so you also get to deal with that as you also are dealing with or trying to run the business and keep the startup going. So that's the very brief intro to your background. We'll talk a little bit more, but welcome onto the podcast.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
So I jumped in just to give a very high level and cursory overview, but maybe if you want to walk us through a bit of your journey that you've taken and what led you to where you're at today, and we can dialogue from there.
Yeah, sure. So for the past, I've worked at big companies earlier on, and I've never, I always felt like I was missing something at the big companies, right? You're just like so siloed and focused, and when I finally got my first opportunity at some earlier startups, I've been through stuff that just really didn't work out, and things that have been great successes over the time. I started got this taste for startups, and then I got a feel for doing a little bit of everything in each one of those. So then it got me into like, okay, cool. So how do I find a role that lets me do a little bit of everything, which is fun, and that's your startup operations role. So then I started getting into really focus into getting applying for startup ops jobs, head of operations, COO, or even just early stages operations. Right? When they don't do titles, they just call you operations. They like a lot of startups, they're like, we're all flat, so we're just gonna call it operations. This guy's sales, this guy's engineering. There's no titles. So I got really interested, startups. I've been working with startups. I got venture funding was a whole new twist too. So I've worked with some startups that were like completely bootstrapped, which was the biggest challenge, right? You can't do anything when you're bootstrapped. But then when you get into VC funding, it's like, oh wow, we get to go hire a bunch of people. We get to go try new marketing things. We get new intros from the VCs and so forth. So it's been fun. So the last like 7-8 years, I'd say over here, I started really having some real fun with startups with a company called Airware. They were here in Newport. They went through the Y. I joined them right as they entered the Y Combinator. They exited the Y Combinator a few months later in Demo Day. Got some funding from like Andreessen Horowitz and Google. And then right, eventually,
I have a feeling we're jumping over like 20 years of your life, and
well, because I figured we'd dive into it more. But the previous stuff was just a bunch of little things that I was trying that just to get a feel for my career, right? So over the last like 8-10 years is where it really formed.
All right, I didn't want to jump or lose all the interesting facts of where you or what led you up today without jumping in. So all right, so we'll fast forward to the last or 10 years ago and start from there. How about that?
Yeah. So what really led me today, right? If you look at across scaling all these startups, your biggest challenge is hiring the team, right? Whether you're bootstrapped or you have venture funding, no matter what you look at it, you need a team, you need good people to help you get to the next level. And so that's always been a passion of mine, trying to figure out how do you get that best team? How do you hire that best team? What do you need to poach talent? And how do you talk them into your startup or new company and leave what they're at now and so forth? So we did that, like I said, from like a last, probably like 10 years. Right? We went from, I consulted for various startups. There was a core water bottle company out here in Lisa Viejo. They had a spinoff of the founder of Core was an apparel company called Ivy Sports, where they did all Ivy League clothing. So I helped there, helped them set up their e-commerce and so forth and go, and then helped them try and find an initial team. But they had a pretty solid team. We're just focused on e-commerce and growth. So that's what we focused on, getting some engineers to help build their e-commerce out. Then I moved on to Airware, which was a commercial drone company here. I think that I
Jumping
was
in
probably.
really quick. So, you've done it. It sounds like, were these startups that you were working with as your full-time job, or you were working for them, or was it on the side as a side hustle, or how did that
They were
work?
all there. Those were like those smaller ones were like side hustles. So they were hoping we can get them big enough to where it can become a permanent hustle. but that's where a lot of learning happened, right? You figure out all these intricacies between. I think there's so many different types of founders out there too, right? So it's a challenge when you have founders, and some are just stuck in their own ways, and some believe they're kind of happy status quo, and that's these early stage startups where bootstrapped, they don't want to spend some money, and that's kind of where you kind of push hard. And I realized like, hey, that probably wasn't for me because I'm not happy status quo. I want to grow,
Yeah.
and build a team and be really successful and do that stuff.
So as you're doing that, so these were side hustles. What were you doing as your main hustle or your source of income during that time?
So my source of income, I had various like normal full time kind of jobs. So it would be whether it be like a kind of like head of support at a company or something like that, where I started building up my startup hustle. To believe it or not, I went into the startup hustle more of, I probably helped probably say like 6 startups and made that my entire job. So I just take a little bit from each one,
Mm.
and that would become like my full-time job. I wasn't really happy working at those, desk jobs where you're butt in seat 8 to 5.
Mm.
And that's what really made me take on and start really figuring out how to get into startups. And this was over 10 years ago, right, when that all happened. And then I started just, okay, maybe I can consult at a few, and that'll cover what I need for now for my full-time income, and have fun helping a bunch of different startups.
So you did that. So, because I think because I mean, that's a dilemma that a lot of people that want to be in the startups or run their own business, right? That's that either I can't afford it, or I don't want to leave the job security, or I don't want to, X, Y, and Z. And so you end up staying at the job, the bigger business or the bigger job, out of wanting to have that financial security, or wanting to know the paychecks coming in, because you're not sure if your startup idea will make it, and how to do it, and how long it will take, and how much it will cost. And so, so how was it, jumping back just a little bit, and I get it was, kind of 10 or before the 10 years, but, working the side hustle, trying to get the startups going, working with them and doing the full-time job, how did you manage it, or how did you juggle that?
Um, I, your life becomes your work at that stage. So it was wake up early, go to bed late. And that's really how I managed it. I just worked all day and night because I could at the time. And it is challenging. And the reason why, and it's not for everyone, but I can tell you that I couldn't get where I wanted to at a big company. I didn't have a degree, right? I didn't go to college. I couldn't. I was forced to work right out of high school to help family and keep housing and all that other stuff up, and I didn't have time to go on and have get a degree. And when I have the experience, I know I could do the job as like a director level person or whatever it is, and you apply for those jobs, you're getting automatically screened out at that stage. This was a while ago. Now they're looking past degrees, but then that's 100%. If you don't have a degree and it's listed on there, they automatically filter on regardless if you have a bunch of experience or however good you are. Even though I could run circles around a guy next to me in an interview, I wouldn't even get that opportunity. So then I got, how do I do that? And that's where startups came to mind. They wanted experience. They didn't care about degree. If you could do it and you can hit the ground running and do a bunch of things, then hey, you're on board as a startup. They don't give a crap about your degree.
Especially
And that's
if they could pay it cheap, and they could get great experience without
yeah.
having to pay for the college degrees in the meantime. So no, I completely agree. So
Exactly. So, and that's what it was. That's what really did it. And as soon as I got into it, I was really, this is it. This is what I want to do. This is fun. I know I can build myself. I can grow up. I can grow with the company. Think about it. You start ground floor, like the 5th, 7th, less than 10th hire. You can really make something great out of it potentially, right? And be on and grow yourself with it. I almost set your own career path. With other big companies, you couldn't. That's why I chose the startup life.
So you chose the startup life, and it sounds like around 10 years ago, 10 years or so ago, you said, okay, I'm going to make this the full-time hustle, or I'm going to make it, the thing where I'll do consulting, I'll work for some of the startups, and between the aggregate of doing it for enough of them, I can make a living, or I can make an income. So then how did that switch to, where did that lead you to where you're at today of actually doing a full-time startup or doing your own hustle? And, how did you kind of make that transition?
Yeah, so the last few companies, I mean, when you get in early and you help build and scale them, and one of them was kind of we worked really the entire team hustled to get like the last acquisition, right? I mean, it wasn't on the plan a couple of years after I joined.
Hmm.
Uh, Team was amazing. The engineering team built a great product. great customers, all the combined efforts of everyone from recruiting and marketing, they put that company at the top of the map and got LinkedIn to see them and acquire them. And then what I realized after that was just when you go through that process, it feels like this is great, but God, it wasn't my thing. And I feel like that's all I've been doing for the past decade is helping everyone else build their companies. And I have a tremendous amount of experience in my head just ready to go. Why not do my own? And my passion, I love people. I love working with people. I love talking to, like when you interview and you recruit and you try and build that team. I love that part of the job. And I figured it's about time that I get into a space that I feel like I was very comfortable in. I knew it very well. I have a lot of industry connections in this space, and I've worked with a ton of recruiters over the years, and we talked and brainstormed. And I'm like, hey, this is it. I'm going to go build this product, Chatterworks, and I'm going to launch on my own. I'm going to really put my foot down. I'm old enough. I've got a family. It's about time I do something for my future, my stability going forward, instead of bouncing around. Because you don't know, I might join the next startup, and who knows? Well, they like two of them. So Airware moved on me to San Francisco. Connectify was acquired, moved by LinkedIn back over to Mountain View. I helped Airbus launch a division, and they required me to move to Atlanta. So it's like all these companies are just leaving my grasp, and then I'm stuck always starting over. And that's not what I wanted anymore. I'm too old to be starting over all the time with
So was that really the tipping point then? So after enough of, you know, enjoyed working for the other startups, or it was, you know, it was gratifying, but one is you wanted to have it in control, and two is they kept leaving or moving to a different place, so to speak, and you're saying, hey, this is where we want to live, this is where we set down roots and establish, and so you're saying, I'm going to take the reins, and rather than keep having to start over, I'm going to do my own thing. Is that kind of what led where it led you
Absolutely.
to?
I wanted to start in Orange County. I was born here in Southern California, but I was raised in Orange County. I wanted a Orange County-based startup funded by some OC investors and build it here and keep it here. And that was the goal, and we got it so far. So it's a fun ride so far.
So how did you, so with that motivation, you're saying, okay, love the startup life. I can't keep having all the businesses that I work so hard to build be out of my control, leave or move or whatever. And then I have to start over. So how did you come up with, Chatterworks, or how did you land on what you're going to do for the business today?
It was mainly what when you look at starting a product, you're thinking like, what problem can I solve? And then for me, it's always been recruiting. No matter how many tools are out there, it's always recruiting. It's always, to me, when I go into a company, yeah, you want to get things organized, you want to help the sales process get in place, you want to help the finances, but in order to do that, it's always been, you got to have the A talent team on board, and you got to figure out how to get that team. And I learned quite a bit at Connectify, or what those tools do for you. When Connectify built that platform, it was amazing. We did a lot of our recruiting actually out of that platform. And obviously we use some ATS components, but once I realized how important passive information is, phone numbers, emails, being able to curate messages and communicate directly, versus trying to send, an email, which some people don't read anymore. Majority of people actually don't read emails now. I've sent so many emails and you're not getting responses. And whether they think it's a bot or whatever it is, right? So being able to have those phone numbers, those emails, really opened my eyes to that kind of recruiting efforts. I looked at all the tools that are out there, and there are plenty of tools that give you the data, but it's what you do with that data, right? I can call myself AI and give you a ton of data, but it's really not useful intelligence for the recruiting industry. It's not really useful artificial intelligence, what we're calling it, UAI. And that's what kind of triggered, like, how do we build something that gives really useful intelligence to recruiters and people looking for work, and not just say, I'm giving this to you and it really doesn't help you in your job, but give you the same stuff everyone else is giving you. And that's kind of how this came about. And then I started meeting with some OC people, talking to a bunch of recruiters over the last year or so, figuring out how to kind of get to where we are today with our launch. And that's how kind of Chatterworks was born.
So you had the company born. So, you came up with the idea, I'm going to stay in recruiting, which is what you enjoy, what you want to do, and what where your expertise lies and what you feel you're good at. And then you went and talked to a lot of people, talked to the people in Orange County, you talked to venture funds. And so now you decided, you made the leap, you've done all of that homework. How has it gone since you started it? Has it been a rocket ship and taken off?
No.
Everything that you've ever dreamed
It was a
of?
slow start. So regardless of the team I put together, which is an amazing, like, very industry, focused team, advisors and entrepreneurs that have proven successful in their careers, and even with my background too, helping build and scale certain startups. the investment side was challenging. And the reason why is what I learned after 6 months of hard trying to get this initial what we call seed round, I guess we'll call it,
Mm.
um, was that when Connectifier got acquired, everyone in the world started opening up all these tools. Like, oh, cool, let's get into the space. Like, let's get into the recruiting space and build all these tools. And then
Mm.
all these venture firms invested in a lot of recruiting space, tech space, HR tech space,
Mm.
and none of them, all of them pretty much tanked. Majority of them just went down the tube. So they lost all their money. We're talking about millions and millions of dollars down the tube, and everyone jumping on the bandwagon of this recruiting tech space. So me not realizing that was the issue, I went, oh, cool, I got the perfect product. I have a ton of recruiters already on board, a huge network. I have great advisors and team and ready to go. We already have it. The initial product was already, actually, I would call like our alpha product was kind of developed already. And I'm
Mm.
going to go out funding. There's no way I can't get this. I know a lot of people, even all the people I knew were like, I can't, they're just, the space is just not good for them. And we need, in order for anyone to start investing in that space again, they want to see a ton of traction. So you could be a college kid coming out with some great tech idea in the Bay Area, and someone will fund you with $10 million. But with all our experience and background, and everything we're doing because of the space we're in, and we're going to do pre-launch, pre-revenue, it was like almost like untouchable at that stage.
Mm.
And then I decided, okay, I'm going to raise a friends and family round, which I did. We raised about a few 100,000 friends and family round. Built this thing out. I met with Carrie Ransom from OC4 Ventures now. He was talking about forming a new fund here in OC, trying to think the way OC thinks about venture funding.
Mm.
And I worked with him probably over the last, I'd say 8 months solid before we really got to an investment point, just because they were building their fund out. We were strategizing how we would do it and all that good stuff. And he was truly a good mentor, advisor, and one guy, and very well connected in this area. So it was a challenge at first until I kind of met Carrie. I knew I could, eventually I was just going to do it, right? I could bootstrap it. I could keep going to my friends and family, but I didn't want to keep asking friends and family for money to build this out, even though we had it. I knew what we needed to do in order to take it to the next level. And that was my goal was to get that instead of keep trying to raise friends and family money. We struggled hard. It was slow because we were just using family funds to build this out. So it was very challenging. You know, I walked into it thinking, people are going to believe in what we're doing. We have the perfect team. We have the perfect product. We even had, hundreds of people saying, hey, I'm ready to use this and I'll pay for it. and that still didn't work. So yeah, it was tough at first.
So then you have to deal with those hurdles. You eventually, I assume you did the friends and family round, then you got the OC venture fund that put in some money, got things going, got it to a point that you could start to grow it, or you could have your minimally viable product or what that is. That where you're at today? Have you got it launched, or is it still in process of launch?
Yeah, so we have a private access only launch. So we have probably about 50 people on it right now. They're just testing it out for us, making sure. I mean, we have a pretty long list of people waiting to use the platform. But my thing is, I want to release something that's really functional, and I know that can actually display some of the tools they're using and paying for now. Because we're here to help, right? I'm not here to nickel and dime people in this industry. There's a million plus recruiters, and why not help provide a tool that can help all companies find people and help our economy jumpstart and so forth. So we're here to help, and we want to make sure we provide that right tool at the right price point. So initially we're not charging, but we will be come say in like 6 to 12 months or so.
All right, no, makes sense. So one question I had, and a bit of a tangent, but I think it's within your wheelhouse, is so I see, and this is now just play the employer side. You have a few different ways that you can go find talent, right? One is obviously you can go and ask the people or people you're aware of that are in your close network and see either if they're interested or they know of anybody, which is usually, in my opinion, maybe the most successful. If you can find people that you've established, have a good relationship with, that their talent, usually the best. But that sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, depending on who's available. But then you kind of have the stratus of, you can almost go two ways, which I would say on any given week or month on LinkedIn, you get a whole bunch of recruiters that ping you and say, hey, can I help you find one? And then you also have what I'll call, the AI or the Zip recruiters or those different things. And so, which way do you see the industry going? Is it still going to have that human touch, and it's going to be, hey, and I still need someone to do the cold calls or to do the reach out? And is there the personal recruiter the best? Or is it going to go more of technology and, hey, we're going to help you find somebody and identify them and do the work in the background using technology? Or is it going to be a combination of both?
I think it's gonna be definitely a combination of both. There's no way, at least to me, my opinion is there's no way you're getting rid of the personal touch, because I am not going to sit there and talk to a message bot all day or an email thing and not hear a voice and explain to me, the opportunity or why I should join this company and talk to that person, see how knowledgeable they are about the company. As a recruiter, here's the thing: a recruiter defines the job essentially, right? I mean, you're the first person that company sees, that candidate hears and sees. So you have to be, if you're not a good recruiter, then there's no way I feel confident and even discuss an opportunity, right? I mean, you could tell by speaking to a recruiter, do they know their stuff? Do they know the job? Do they know the company? Do they know the people, the culture, all that good stuff very well? You can't get that across all these, no matter how intelligent your bots or messaging gets. There's no way you can tell that. You can always have the combination on the back end run and help the recruiters identify, right? Identify the best times to contact, the type of individual they are, and show them all the social information so they know how to kind of curate those messages and help them tailor it. But it's going to be very difficult to always take away that personal response out of a recruiter, the human being person of it, aspect of it.
All right. No, definitely makes sense. So now as you take where you guys are at today, what's the next 6 to 12 months look for you guys? Where do you think things are headed?
Yeah, so for us, the next 6 to 12 months, our goal is to get to a thousand recruiters on our platform. And also for us, our product side is releasing our entire, we call our UAI suite, our intelligence suite, which is helping recruiters understand the best platform to communicate with candidates on, the average time of days these candidates may be available to communicate with. Kind of sentiment analysis to understand the type of individual and culture type they are, so you know how to kind of tailor that response. So this is the kind of automation I was talking about on the back end, where you provide all this information, real intelligence and real helpful insights, so the recruiter can then curate that perfect message to the perfect platform for them. So that's our goal, is to have that intelligence suite launched.
All right. Sounds like an awesome goal to me. So, all right. Well, as we get towards the end of the podcast, I always ask 2 questions. So we'll jump to those now. So the first question I always ask is, so what was the worst business decision you ever made?
So I would say business decision is tough, because as a right hand to founders, you always have to go through different approvals to get a lot of things done. But for me, overall, I can say from my experience, any business decision that I made would have been poor communication. And I can own up to that. Is meaning that when I come into a startup, I'm like, okay, cool. The founder needs to be focused on strategy, big picture and product and stuff. I need to take care of the rest. So then I go take on that burden of the rest. And it's always been like, I don't need to bother them with that. But instead, you need to communicate and let them know so they understand the business, where you're going, any challenges, all that stuff. And I would always try and be that kind of the Rottweiler at the gates, and try and protect. In my head, I'm thinking you're protecting the founder from all these issues, when in reality you're causing more issues by not communicating and trying to deal with it on your own. So for me, that's happened across a couple where I finally broke that habit, I'll tell you that. But it took a while to get there, and that always I can speak back on it now and say I know that was a problem, a business decision, a business problem. And it affects a lot of things when you don't communicate well, especially when you're running all the operations of an organization.
All right. No, makes perfect sense. And that's one that's it's an easy mistake for a lot of us to learn. And even when, communication is a hard one, because, and I've founded and co-founded some companies, and I have people that work for me and whatnot. And, I have a very busy schedule. So, if you're always trying to they're always trying to gauge when is the right time to come knock on the door or relay message, and how much you should relay and how much you should not. They don't know. They don't need to tell you, and they just need to get taken care of. So I think it's always a balance that you have to find, but making sure you get that right amount of communication so that the people that are running the company, that are making the decisions, are able to make an informed decision or know what's going on, while not having to get into details that they don't need. So I think that's a good lesson.
Absolutely. You may not think it's needed, but I promise you that is a big business problem if communication isn't there.
Yep. So, all right. So we jump on now to the second question, which is, so you're talking to someone that's just getting into a startup or small business, just starting out. What would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
So for me, it's you probably hear this a lot, actually. Getting to a startup is exciting, but it's also scary. Like when I did it myself, when I was the actual founder, the owner, the CEO of the company, responsible for everything and all the money and how you build a product and scale goes in, it becomes scary. You're no longer that right-hand person because you always have somebody taking care of it. You are that person.
Mm.
So always, you got to be organized and understand. I've been taught quite a bit, even from OC4 guys, is about the product fit, right? I mean, it's great to get in a startup and you have this great idea, but before you go willy-nilly into all of it and go spend a bunch of money and resources, make sure that you actually have a problem you're solving and not something in your head that you think you're solving. Because I know at the very beginning, I'll tell you this. At the very beginning, I thought I was solving a big problem by building this all-in-one ecosystem for startups. And because I knew all the problems as an operations guy, everything you need to do. But that was my problem I was solving, but I wasn't solving the world's problem. That's how you kind of pivot to where you're going. So make sure you understand what you're really solving, if it really is a problem that's visible across the spectrum.
No, I think that makes great sense. And it's always identifying that problem, identifying if it's a problem that's just for you, and if you solve that and nobody else wants it, then it's not going to be,
Yeah.
it may be a good project for you to get done, but not necessarily for other people to get done. And, and I do agree that one other thing you said is that, it is a much different shoes to fill when you're actually the one making the decisions. When there isn't somebody else you can go ask the questions to. There isn't someone else that if the decision is wrong that you can say, well, I didn't make the decision or anything else. So even if you work closely, there is a much different feel to a startup when you're actually the person in charge. So I agree on both of those and think that they're both good pieces of advice. So, well, if people want to check out Chatterworks, I know you're kind of more on the private side, but as you either, if they want to sign up, they want to know more, they want to reach out, they want to use the tool, or they just want to be informed as it goes live, what would be the best way to connect with you?
So there's you can sign up if you want on our splash page. We have chatterworks.com. Or you can just email me. Everyone can have my email. It's my first name, Shafiur at chatterworks.com. That's S as in Sam, H-A-F as in Frank, I-U-R at chatterworks.com. So you can get a hold of me. My email is open to everyone if you want to chat.
All right. Well, definitely, if you're looking to invest, you're looking to get a job, you're looking to sign up, you're looking to find hires or anything else, certainly reach out to you. So thank you. Excuse me. Thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun to hear your journey. For those of you that are looking to tell your own journey, we always welcome people to come on the podcast that have a great journey to tell. You can go to inventivejourneyguest.com and apply to be on the podcast. And for those of you that are listeners and you caught this episode or any of the other ones, make sure to subscribe so you can get a notification when each new episode goes live. And certainly if you need any help with patents or trademarks, feel free to reach out to us at Miller IP Law. Thank you again for coming on. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun to hear your journey. And I wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
I appreciate it, Devin. Thanks for having me.
All right.